Hello everyone, my name's Alex and today I'll be going through the answers for the IELTS analysis class. This is where I'll be looking at the task that you have been set in the Facebook group and going through the ways in which completing this task will help you with your IELTS preparation, and also looking at how we can improve going forward in relation to a specific aspect of the IELTS exam. So today, what we are focusing on is grammar, and that is what I will be dealing with in today's class. So welcome to all of you who are watching live, and please let me know in the chat if you are watching and where you currently are. And also, if you have the answers to the questions, then please let me know as well. The more interactive we can make this class, the more that you will get out of it. So do please share your answers if you have completed the task in the chat box when we start looking at the answers together. So as I said, today we are focusing on grammar. So let's have a look at the content for today's IELTS answer analysis class. Okay, just as we're doing this, I can see that Jamie from Singapore is in the class today. Great to see you there, Jamie. I look forward to others as well popping in and saying hello. Okay. So the focus of the task for today was referring to habits in the past. So here are some points in relation to this. When we are referring to the past, we should ensure two things in relation to grammar for the IELTS test. First of all, we want to note that grammar is extremely important for both writing and speaking. 25% of your grade for speaking will be based on your use of grammar, as will 25% of your writing grade be based on your usage of grammar. So it is key that you're able to use grammar both accurately and also that you're able to use a variety of grammatical structures in both your speaking and your writing. So what do we mean when we talk about using a variety of grammar and using grammar accurately? Well, the first point is, of course, is that our grammar has to be correct. So if we're using tenses, we need to make sure we're using the past tense when we should be using the past tense. If we're using prepositions, we need to make sure we're using the correct preposition depending on the sentence. So that's a first point. It's an obvious point, but a very important one, that our grammar needs to be correct. Also, we need to ensure that we're using formal or standard grammar. So sometimes in conversation, it's possible to hear grammar that is informal or non-standard. And we can see the example here that we would say he is not or he isn't. We wouldn't say he ain't. He ain't is an example of non-standard grammar. And so we should not be using this for the IELTS, as this is a formal test within writing, and it's testing standard speech within speaking. Looking at variety, one key in terms of using variety in our grammar is that we avoid repetition. So if we keep on using the same grammatical structures, then we will not be showing a range or a variety in our grammar for both speaking and writing. So an use of modal verbs like might. He might do this, this might happen, they might think this, but that we use variety and don't just keep repeating the same words. And also part 4 obviously is completely related to part 3 here. By avoiding repetition, we will use that variety. And the variety comes in with the same example before. Instead of using might, we can use may or could or will potentially. These are all different ways we can express the same idea, but by using different modal verbs, different grammatical choices in these cases. So that's the important element then of IELTS grammar, that we are both accurate and that we use a variety when it comes to using grammatical structures. I can see that Nana and Mulenga have joined the class. Hello to you both and welcome. And Jesse as well, hello to you. So this is the context then for grammar within the IELTS test. So when we use accurate and varied grammar to refer specifically to the past, there are three questions that we want to ask ourselves. So we're writing about the past. First of all, are we writing about a habit, or is it a one-time or short-term event? The rules for grammar will be different depending on which of those situations we are writing about or speaking about. The second question is, are you referring to an action or a state? So, for example, if we're referring to an action, we're referring to something that someone can do, a motion, an activity. If we're referring to a state, then we're referring to something that somebody is, or somebody, a possession that someone has, or knowledge that someone has. So it's not an activity or an action, but it's something which is different to that. It's a state. So an action would be, for example, to go to work. The verb to go in this case is an action. A state would be to be happy. Yeah, the verb to be refers to states. The third question that we'd want to ask ourselves in terms of using accurate and varied grammar is, which structures have we used already and which have we not yet used? This is a really important question because this is where our variety will come from. If we keep on using the same structures, we will lack variety. If we are able to recognize which structures we've used and use different ones, then that is when we can increase our variety and therefore increase our grammar score for the IELTS. Okay, Alice, hello to you. Great to see you joining the class with us. So we're going to move on now then to look at the task specifically, and these are the points that I want you to bear in mind. These three questions in terms of what is appropriate grammar for referring to the past. So let's have a look. We've got here the language focus for a habit in the past, and in the task we had we had these two sentences. So they remembered how they would all go round to, and all of whom used to have one. So we can see here there is use of would and used to. And so the question is, why are we using would in this case? And why are we using used to? So clearly, both of these two sentences are referring to the past, but there are three reasons why we might use would or used to. So we can see A, like the simple past, would and used to show repeated actions or activities that no longer happen. Or B, would is used for reminiscing about the past, so thinking about the past in this case. And used to is used to talk about states that no longer exist, while would is only used to describe repeated actions or activities. Also worth noting, would is not used in negative sentences or yes/no questions. It's not usually used in those contexts. So what do we think then? So in the first one, they remembered how they would all go round to. Which of these options best matches the reason for using would in this case? A, B, or C? Let me know in the chat box which one you think is the best option. Why are we using would? Are we using it to show repeated action that no longer happens? Are we using it to reminisce or think about the past? Or are we using it to refer to states that no longer exist? Okay, so in this context, we're using would for B, aren't we? This is reminiscing about the past. We're thinking about the past. So they remembered. Remembered is the key word. You're reminiscing, thinking about how things were in the past. It's not that way anymore. So this will be option B. What about in the second case? So all of whom used to have one. Which do we think best applies in this case? Option A, B, or C? Again, let me know in the chat box if you have the answer. So in this case then, all of whom used to have one. Used to is referring to a state. So this is C. So have is possession, and that's a state. It's not an action. To possess something doesn't mean that you're actually doing anything. So it's a state, and we use used to refer to states. We're now going to have a look at some more specific examples. And as we do so, again, let me know if you have the answers to the questions. So some of these sentences will be correct. Some of them will not be correct. I want you to tell me which ones you think are not correct and how we might change them. So let's have a look at that together. Jamie and Gutierrez both suggested C, by the way, for that final question. So good to see you interacting there. And let me know what you think in relation to the task we're going to have a look at now. So here we are. I would work at the post office during holidays when I was young. Do we think this is correct or incorrect? Bearing in mind the rules we've looked at, are we talking about an action or a state? Is it a habit in the past? What do we think? Correct or incorrect? Let me know in the chat box if you have the answers. So this one would be correct. Work is an action. We can use would for an action. Clearly, it's in the past. It's a habit. When I was young, so would be correct in this case. What about number 2? Students used to play silly games, but they would never hurt anyone. Is this correct? Okay, so Jamie is saying, yeah, he likes this one. He thinks this is a correct sentence. I agree. Yeah, absolutely. So used to play silly games. Again, it's a habit in the past, but they would never hurt anyone. Again, referring to the past, something which was a habit. So we can use that. That is correct. Number 3, my father would work as a lawyer, but he didn't do it for long. Do we think this is a correct sentence? Right. Yeah. So this one would be false, Gutierrez. Yep, absolutely. I agree. He didn't do it for long, so it's not really a habit. So in this case, you'd be better to use the past simple. My father worked as a lawyer, but he didn't do it for long. We'd only use would if it was something which was a continuous experience. For number 4, people in my hometown would hold lots of parties at all times of the year. Do we agree with this one? Well done, Apple, by the way, for number 3. Absolutely incorrect. Worked is what we should use. Any suggestions on number 4? Okay, so this one would be correct. So they would hold lots of parties at all times of the year. This is reminiscing about the past, isn't it? Hold is an action. You can hold a party. It's something that you do. And so this would be a correct sentence. Moving on to number 5. My uncle used to mend machinery and would even build his own car. What do we think to this one? Do we like the sentence? Okay, so for this one, the first part is fine. Used to mend machinery, a habit in the past, but would even build is not correct because this suggests that he built his own car many times. This was a habit. He kept doing it and doing it and doing it. Clearly, this is not realistic that he would keep building new cars for himself. So even built using the past simple, because it's not a habit, it's something that happened on one occasion. That would be the correct answer for number 5. Number 6, my brothers and sisters didn't used to go to university. They went straight into work after secondary school. Any thoughts on this one? Safa, hello to you. Welcome to the class. Okay, so for number 6, not didn't used to go, just didn't go. Yeah, so this isn't a habit. You can't make a habit out of not going to university. It would be the past simple we'd use here. So my brothers and sisters didn't go to university. They went straight into work. Number 7, as a rule, people left their doors unlocked. There never used to be any break-ins. What do we think to this? Is this a good use of used to? Are we referring to habits in the past here? Yes, we are. We are referring to habits. So remember, we can use the past simple to refer to a habit as well. It is possible. So as a rule, people left their doors unlocked. There never used to be any break-ins is correct as well, because it refers to the same situation, a continuous period. So we can use used to. And finally, number 8, people didn't used to throw things out rather than mending them as they do now. What do we think? Is this correct? Okay, so Jesse and Jamie are saying this is correct. I agree. Yeah, this is absolutely fine. You're referring again to a habit in the past, something people didn't used to do. So that would be a correct sentence. So well done for those who participated in the activity. We can see there were lots of examples where we can use used to and would in order to refer to habits in the past. And we also saw some examples where it wouldn't be appropriate to use these expressions. So just remember, being able to use accurate varied grammar will improve your IELTS speaking and writing scores. So it is definitely important to practice in these areas. So it just remains for me to thank all of those who have attended today's class. I hope you have found it useful. Do join me again for the next IELTS analysis class, which we will be looking at on Tuesday of next week. But until then, take care, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.